There's no need to edit. I get an hour drive. Not really sure if I got anything on my mind. But sometimes things get sparked. I'm in New Hampshire and I drove west onto the Vermont border, and when I do that, I like to check in with government radio, NPR. It's so very interesting. I hadn't listened in probably 6 months to a year. When I went libertarian, or I got back to being libertarian, I should say, and started deprogramming myself, and I'm using the word libertarian for lack of a better word, but just getting back to reality from being propagandized my entire life, as most of us are. I understood the world much better, and at first my life was very difficult making the change, because you lose friends, family. I lost jobs and contracts, and you're butting heads with people, and then slowly some of those people come back in and out of your life. They kind of understand. It could be politically charged times, and then they become uncharged or whatever. But when you're talking and you run into another libertarian, I used to go to these events, rumble strips. I used to go to these events and talk to other libertarians, and even, you get these small differences, between the people that are highly autistic, black and white libertarians, and people that understand the nuances of reality. So you have these principles, like physics, they're just principles of reality that exist, and then how do those actual things happen in real life? And some people can't dance back and forth between the science and the physics and the engineering and the social elements of it, and some can, and some dance better than others. But all in all, you could see the principles in most of the individuals and work backwards. It may be because a large portion of my family was also Republican or conservative growing up, and liberal and Democrat growing up. But as I looked at the Republicans, I can kind of look back and I can kind of figure out, although their principles weren't necessarily sound, they were conceptually not valid, and I could dismantle them. I was able to at least see a common ground of how they got to where they were. But when it came to Democrats and liberals, I just couldn't figure it out. I couldn't figure out how they were so in sync, in lockstep with one another, and they had no principles. In fact, they had contradictory stances that they were dug into. Two absolutely contradictory stances that they were dug into. And they both knew it. And it didn't matter who or where or when I ran into them. They had this. And I couldn't figure it out. And at the time, I think this is when I was running a Facebook page. And doing memes and stuff online, and I thought there must be a newsletter. So I I hadn't had really much political stance at the time, so I hadn't spread. And I did my best to do some searching online and try to create a generic email and stuff and name. And I wasn't registered to vote. So I thought that maybe like there was a secret email club that I could get on. And I kept looking. I couldn't find anything. So that was probably 2008, 9, 10, if I had to guess. The current year is 2023. Then I went vegan in 2015, and it was very polarizing because quite a few people that I was friends with on the right immediately associated veganism with soy and the left, and it just really showed me who the right-leaning ideologues were. Having said that, I tried to make some vegan friends, and I learned really quickly that I had to not only be quiet about libertarianism if I wanted to talk to them about veganism, but also they would only talk about veganism as they wanted and saw it. It was there was groups of vegans. There was like the environmental quote-unquote vegans. They thought they were doing it because of the climate crisis and they could turn things around. There was the animal rights vegans, the ones that do it for the animals. They don't do leather, they don't do any animal products. There was freegans. Freegans are people that, or vegans that don't eat animal products, but they will if it's like free. So if they have a belt, or they got something from you, or a gift, or somebody offers them a cupcake, or they don't have to pay for it, because they don't want to financially support the systems that harm animals. But if something's already been harmed, they would rather kind of be quiet so they're not insulting. And if it's and if it's already being consumed, they don't want it to go to waste, so they kind of steward it. So like a lot of freegans will take very, very good care of a leather product or an animal product so that it lasts a lifetime, rather than have it go into hands of, if they don't pay for it, so they didn't contribute, and then rather go into hands where it's wasted. They're giving afterlife to the animal. But one thing that I noticed when I was in the vegan Facebook groups is when a political event came on the horizon, we would get these blasts in our inbox, and we would get these blasts on the page basically saying, this X, Y, and Z thing is happening, and it's our job in this group to go do it. And I was like, whoa. Veganism has a very stated purpose. Why am I going to an LGBTQ march, and what does that have to do with veganism? Or why am I getting, a climate change? The climate change one, I guess I could kind of understand, but you would get these very left-leaning invitations. Never right-leaning political movements. Always left-leaning political movements. And not like protest a cattle march or a climate change. Something that wasn't in, like I said, the LGBT community, or feminism, or women. I mean, there might even be an argument to be made that it's cows are female that are being milked, but that was not the stance that these things were going to. So then, that's when I kind of understood what this intersectionalism was. And it's basically like, if you're in this thing, then you got to be in this, and if you don't, we ostracize you in this. So if you want to make vegan friends, tough shit. You got to also do all these other things. And I can see if somebody doesn't have friends or family, that can be very tempting. And I didn't have either. I just didn't give a fuck. I don't know if I'm autistic, manly, sociopathic. I spend quite a bit of time alone, and I spend quite a bit of time happy and satisfied. Almost too much. But then again, I am talking to a box in my car in the middle of nowhere as if it's a human being, so maybe I've already lost my mind. Anyways, brings me to the next stage. So I started to kind of understand that these orders were being given out through these intersectionality stuff. So if you're this, you have to be this, and you have to believe this. Then I had not really watched the news. I had watched Red Eye for the comedians and stuff. I've always been into comedy. So I was kind of like on Fox News watching Red Eye. I thought it was funny. And I didn't really think it was right-leaning. I used to watch The Daily Show with Jon Stewart back when it was good. It used to kind of be, it was always left-leaning, but it used to be more center-left in the early days. And then, I don't know if it was propaganda, ratings, or contractual, or what. They moved further and further left over the years. But then I was listening to NPR. This is what bringing me up to this today, because I was in Vermont listening to NPR today. And I can see now between the colleges, NPR, these intersectional groups online that people join for camaraderie, how the orders are coming top down, and then the people don't even realize that they're coming top down. So one of the things that was interesting today that I was listening to, and the way that NPR is set up, it's I really enjoy it. First of all, I find NPR hilarious. I think it's funnier than SNL. If they had and did the articles that they pretend are real on NPR, on SNL, with people dressed in costumes, they're absolutely hilarious. I mean, they're so unaware. They have no self-awareness. People that are reading these talking heads, and they have their heads so far up their own asses that it becomes comical. But I remember the word changes. I remember listening to NPR when they started saying, you know, people would say equality, equality, equality. And then NPR started switching in like about a year or two ago. Every third time they would say equity instead of equality. And they started using them interchangeably. And then one day they just stopped using equal and started saying equity. Which is a huge change to put out into the zeitgeist of people that listen to NPR. But then it primes them for, you know, the real world and Facebook and intersectionality. And I was off social media at this time, but I would be willing to venture a guess that this same vocabulary was being used on CNN and MSNBC and in these intersectional groups. And the way NPR is set up, it's really clever, really genius. I really love it. You'll start listening for a couple hours, and they prime you and they poison the well with these little stories, and they pretend like then it cuts and it's a whole different story with a whole different host. But it's telling one big story, and it leads up to these hourly stories where they have a big piece of propaganda they want to feed you, that they've you know, filled you up. So they were talking about like transgenderism and female rights and how they're like a minority and we still gotta fight for them, or all this stuff. And then it starts on feminism, and then they kind of talk about transgenderism, non-binary, and they didn't use the word BIPOC today. For a while they were trying to use BIPOC, which is Black, Indigenous, people of color. It kind of went away. I guess that word didn't catch on with that acronym. But as they kind of built this story, they kind of stop it and they say, they kind of make it sound like they're going to present to you like, okay, these have been opinion pieces, but now we're getting to the cold, hard economic facts that everybody's been waiting for. Just pure science, statistics, and business. You know, and everybody tunes into NPR for it. And the woman comes on, they say that she's a student journalist or she studied journalism in school. She doesn't say that she's reporting and that she's acting as a journalist. They say that she graduated with a journalist degree, which is what is so beautiful about that. Like, this is, if you listen so closely to the way that they parse their words, and I think Michael Malice always talks about this, where they're not truthful, but it's factual. So they come in and she's presented as if this is journalism, economic journalism. But they never say, they just said that she's graduated with a degree from, I forget wherever it was, with a degree in journalism. And then it's like, it's never said that this is, you know, a journalistic truth, non-opinion piece. That's all implied. So she's being interviewed by this woman, and they're going back and forth about this stuff, and they're basically talking about diversity and how important diversity is in the workforce, and that corporations are starting to understand diversity. And I'm laughing because this is a true statistic, in same thing in nature. Yes, diversity is a strength, but voluntary diversity based on merit. So like, if you have a corporation that has the best, you know, English academics and the best mathematicians and the best engineers and their diverse group of individuals, then yes, the fact that they have different focal points of education that are diverse is very important for a company. However, when they're talking about diversity, they're switching it. They're meaning like, you know, you need a woman in a wheelchair that's got glasses and, you know, has a sexual preference that's different than the norm. But anyways, the woman continues on, and they're talking and saying diversity has been shown to return 20% in a corporate thing. And they have this very specific wording. I forget what it was, but it was very clever because they excuse me, they parse the data in a particular way, again, where they're being factual but not truthful. They're representing it as if throughout all society and all gamuts, all you have to do is add diversity and you have a 20% profit growth. But they used a particular lineage of words to cut things off, you know? So this wasn't about like entrepreneurship, this wasn't about business, this wasn't about free markets. It was like, you know, in corporate whatever section. So it's their very specific part. Then she went on again to talk about how currently in this particular parse section that 60% of the workforce is female or and LGBTQ/non-binary or whatever. And I'm not sure where these polls are done. I mean, if they were done in like Providence or Boston or Portland, Washington, obviously not Maine. Maybe Portland, Maine nowadays, actually. They may be true. And what comes up, obviously, is, in the woman's head says this too, the woman that's interviewing the journalist, because the segments are set up like one person's like asking these very softball questions and the other person's answering them. And she's like, well, that doesn't seem very equal and equitable or whatever. And she's like, oh, no, it's not. We need to flip the status quo. This has never been about equality. And I was like, I mean, I just had to laugh because it was like bingo. Like, I mean, it's only been 2 decades of gaslighting, but they're finally going to probably start moving the status quo. And then I remember M&M's recently had that commercial, flip the status quo. The futurist female is flipping the status quo. And I mean, maybe it is 20% more profitable. I mean, if you watch Jordan Peterson, these individuals are a lot less likely to negotiate higher salaries. So maybe the corporations are getting more bang for their buck. So then the woman says, like, oh, I have 2 sons, with a concerned, concerned question. And this woman laughs and asks, are they non-binary? And then the segment just cuts. It's just like, it was so Orwellian. And it was also like, King Jong-un, or some dictator is just like, okay, shut her down, they're on to us. But I guess my point is, it's just, if there's this giant violent system that can force other people via a gun to do what they want them to do, or get thrown in a cage, of course people that don't have skill sets to offer other individuals, and I'm not, some people are just straight evil. They have the skill sets, but they prefer the easy route. But some people just generally don't have the mental capacity, know-how, or skill sets to be entrepreneurs, to be independent stuff. They need a collective, and there is obviously voluntary collectives for individuals who understand that about themselves and want to be moral. But morals aren't taught nowadays. People don't understand morals. They think morals are, laws or whatever. But I don't know. It was just really fun to me. It was on my mind. I thought you guys might get a kick out of it. And guys, I mean, I'll probably never post this. It's a dark video. I'm on the highway. There's lights. It's wrong. I mean, honestly, I need to start filming. I need to put together a studio. Me personally, I don't know if this is divinity, if I'm being conceited, or I don't find this. I don't really see. I mean, you see hyperbolic individuals being loud and brass, but I don't see too many people talking very clearly about this stuff in this particular manner. And the ones that do usually end up talking about it more on a political point rather than a philosophical. And maybe today I kind of discussed it on a more of a political thing. But I was thinking about it as more philosophical. Meaning, I mean, I understand both sides. I understand why they want groupthink, why they've been fighting so hard to get in power of this big giant monster that will get them stuff. But I also understand why men have walked away and given this to them. I don't know. Just keep an eye out, man. It's obviously about flipping the status quo. It has nothing to do with equity or equality. So, okay, take care. Bye.